Hi friends, it's Sunday and I'm recording this before you're watching it. I'm up in Vail, Colorado, and there's the beautiful mountain behind me. My kids are in the pool nearby, so you might hear shouting and splashing in the background. Sorry about that. But when we left off last, Gib had gotten a pretty important warning from Madam Isis, and so I'm going to pick up there. This next chapter, chapter 5, is called View from the Devil's Elevator. I raced out of the tent and looked around frantically. There was no sign of Madam Isis, but it was impossible to miss Ash and Roxy. Ash wobbled down the midway, a snow cone balanced on his nose, while Roxy skipped around him, shrieking with laughter. "Good trick," she cried, clapping her hands. As soon as Ash saw me, he said, "Whew, thought you'd never get here." He handed the snow cone to Roxy, and we wandered down the midway, while she licked it with ferocious concentration, and I told Ash what Madam Isis had said. "The funny thing is, I met an old man in the woods this afternoon," I said. "Now Madam Isis, who I don't even know, tells me he told her my name and gave her a message for me, and the message is all about Roxy running after that crazy stray dog. Something very weird is going on." Ash chewed gently at the inside of his cheek, which he only does when he's thinking hard. "Not necessarily," he said. "Maybe the old man works for the carnival too. Maybe he spies for her. Most people who claim to be psychics work with partners, you know. A spy could have heard me say your name, and a spy could have seen that whole thing with Roxy and the dog. That mean Carney who said she was about to lose a body part, he was probably in on it too. But how did the old guy know I was going to be in the woods this afternoon? He knew way too much about me, Ash. I mean it." Ash shrugged. "Maybe he was spying on you all afternoon." I thought about that for a while. What do you guys think? Do you think that's the situation? I didn't want to believe him. I wanted Madam Isis and the strange old man, and especially the Unner, to be genuine, not just a cheesy carnival act. And I hated the idea that somebody might have been watching me in secret. But I had to admit Ash had made some good points. "How could she know you want to be an astronaut?" I asked. "How many guys do you know who haven't thought about being an astronaut at least once, Gib?" I nodded, feeling defeated. He was right. Neither of us talked much for a while after that. I let Roxy drag us along through the current of excitement on the midway, while I thought about what a big disappointment the whole day had been. Eventually, Roxy wheedled me into trying to win the bloated blue and brown stuffed dog-like creature at the coin toss booth. I threw quarters like a zombie, completely unable to keep my mind on what I was doing, until I realized I'd spent $4 and had nothing to show for it. "You can't quit now. You didn't win the big dog yet. You said you'd win it for me," said Roxy, sticking her lower lip out. "I said I'd try, so I tried, and I couldn't do it, okay?" She made a scrunchy face. I could see she was getting ready to cry. Ash saw it too. "Hey, Roxy, why don't we try the carousel?" he said. "Look, you can pick an animal to ride. We can all go. It'll be fun." From where we stood, we could see the carousel brightly lit and whirling. Horses, leopards, pigs, and elephants dipped in rows. Brass poles flashed. A calliope waltz floated through the night air. "Could I ride a doggy?" asked Roxy. Ash grinned like someone with a slight stomach ache. "Well, let's see if we can find one." We didn't see a dog, though there was a wolf, and that was close enough for Roxy. Afterward, we took her to the kiddie car ride, then the ponies. I stood guard while Ash rode the tilt-a-whirl, then he did the same for me. It was better than nothing, but nowhere near the fun it would have been together. Meanwhile, I couldn't help turning to watch the Devil's Elevator every time a new crop of riders took the plunge. A metal cage carried them slowly up the tall, thin tower decked with lights. When they got to the top, the cage dropped like a rock, stopping fast in just the last few feet. I think there's one like that at Elitch's. More than anything else I could think of, I wanted to ride it. Not by myself, but with Ash. It seemed like a small enough thing. After such an awful day, there had to be a way we could manage it. Near the pony ride stood a trailer cart where a woman with a lot of makeup was selling cotton candy, peanuts, and candy apples. I knew Roxy loved candy apples. She waited all year for them because they were hard to find, except in the few days before Halloween. Inspiration went off in my head like a party popper. "Hey, Rox, you want a candy apple?" I said as the pony man lifted her down from the saddle. Yeah, candy apple," she cried. "Okay, I'll get you one, but you have to promise something first." "What?" "You have to promise you'll stand right where I tell you and not move even 1 inch while Ash and I ride the devil's elevator." As I said these words, I felt an uncomfortable prickling in the back of my neck. Madam Isis had told us not to let Roxy out of our sight, but then I shook myself, feeling silly. Madam Isis couldn't be for real. Besides, I'd watched Roxy all night, and nothing dangerous had happened. I deserved a little fun. Roxy looked suspicious. "Are you tricking me? Am I going to have to ride with you?" "No, you don't have to, and you get a candy apple, as long as you promise to stay right where I tell you till Ash and I are done." "Can I eat it while I'm standing there?" "No problem. Deal?" She smiled and said, "Okay," and joyfully stuck her tongue out through the gap where she'd lost her second front tooth the week before. So we bought a candy apple and stationed her at the foot of the devil's elevator. "Remember, don't move even 1 inch," I said, as I gave her the apple. "Okay," she replied. Ash and I handed the last of our tickets over and climbed into the elevator car, a metal mesh cage with benches and seat belts. 6 people could fit inside, packed like pickles in a jar. We were loaded in with a bunch of girls who started screaming before the ride even started. I could see Roxy through the mesh. Without front teeth, she was having trouble biting the candy apple, a problem I hadn't thought of, but she was still exactly where we told her to stand. The cage jerked and began moving with a grinding noise. My heart sped up. The last piece of Madam Isis's warning flashed into my head with awful clarity. "Be very careful. This is a dangerous night." I just got the goosebumps. What if she wasn't talking about Roxy and the dog? What if there was something wrong with the machinery? It occurred to me that I might be about to die. I pressed my nose to the mesh so I could see better. As far as I could tell, the machinery looked all right. But who could say for certain? One loose bolt could make a big difference. Looking down, I saw Roxy stamp her foot in frustration and throw the candy apple in the dirt. She crossed her arms and scowled at me. I really want you to take a pause right now and think about what you think is going to happen next. What do you predict? Roxy crossed her arms and scowled up at me. "Stay put, you promised," I yelled, partly because I really wanted her to stay where I could see her, partly because it felt better to be angry than to be scared spitless at the possibility of dying on this ride. My blood thundered in my ears. It was impossible to tell whether Roxy had heard my shout above the crowd noise, the music, and the jingling racket of the ride motor. Things might have been okay anyway if the mangy, stray dog hadn't suddenly reappeared. Uh-oh. It trotted straight to Roxy's discarded candy apple, picked it up in its mouth, and ran. The cage had risen nearly to the top of the tower now, but even so, I clearly heard Roxy squeal, "Hey, doggy, that's mine!" Maybe she was just happy to see that dog again, or maybe she was really angry that it took her apple. Whatever the reason, she forgot her promise and ran after it, her small feet raising dust clouds with each step. I have to take a deep breath. I hate reading this part. Sometimes in the past when I've read this part out loud, especially at school, when I can't pause and take a look around, I get pretty teary. So just prepare yourself. I yelled as loudly as I could, first at Roxy to stop, then at the ride operator to let me off. I grabbed the mesh and shook it to get the carnies' attention, but all I managed to do was make the girls in the cage with us shriek even louder. Ash shouted, "Gib, what's the matter?" All I could do was scream Roxy's name over and over as I watched the scene unfold from our bird's-eye view and realized with sickening certainty that Madam Isis and the old man in the woods were way, way more than a slick carnival act. The stray dog bounded full tilt toward the street, where dozens of cars and trucks sped past in both directions. Just a few feet behind, headed straight for disaster, with her arms outstretched, ran Roxy. My voice failed as the dog darted off the curb into the sea of zooming traffic. The sound of shrieking brakes cut through the din of the carnival. The dog kept running, miraculously untouched, and so did Roxy, but not for long. Someone on the sidewalk reached out to stop her. Ugh. But she slipped through his arms almost as if he wasn't there at all. He put his hands over his mouth as he watched, powerless. And I thought with a jolt that he looked like the old man from the woods. Everything seemed to move in slow motion as I watched the bumper of a pickup truck get closer and closer and finally connect with my sister's fragile body. I remembered the tears in Madame Isis's eyes when she had looked up from the crystal ball. The sound of my own scream seemed far away as the devil's elevator began its long plummet back to earth. So, do you see now why Gib needs that honor? Pretty crazy, huh? He should have taken the old man's advice. So, I'm going to stop there. I'm going to wipe away my tears, and I'll see you in the next part on Friday.